Maryland basketball hires Coach Buzz Williams.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And we also have Ahmed from Inside Black and Gold, who often joins the show. So thank you for joining me, Ahmed, today for some huge news as Maryland makes a really big hiring that personally I feel really good about with the hiring of Coach Buzz Williams.
Yeah, the long hiring process that took all of 2.5 days has officially come to an end after, obviously, as we all know, Kevin Willard's 2-week saga ended with him going to Villanova. And Maryland moved quickly. Obviously, Buzz Williams was that first real public name that, it was clear that he was interested in the Maryland job.
Right.
Has kind of been looking at other openings, the last 2 years, has expressed interest in the Maryland job in years past. But again, Buzz Williams was one of a handful of guys mentioned, Tony Skinn, Dwayne Simpkins, David Cox, Luke Murray, UConn assistant as well. But Buzz Williams seemed to be that most prominent and among the most likely names throughout. And even in this morning, seemed like a little bit of Tony Skinn as well with Buzz Williams looming large. And obviously, Maryland moved quick, 6-year deal to lock down what they hope to be their next long-term coach.
Yeah, exactly. And I think to me, I knew it was going to move quickly. I just didn't know it was going to move exactly this quickly. I think I'm really glad with how quickly it moved with all the portal and all the things going around. But I definitely feel, and I think a lot of the fans feel like this is a pretty good hiring. Him coming from Texas A&M has done some really good things over there over the last couple of years. And I'm curious of what you think. But in my opinion, I think this is a great hiring for the Terps. I think we got our guy. I think he's experienced. And I really like kind of where the Terps went in this direction. And I think we definitely got a guy.
Yeah, I think, really among, the candidates mentioned, I mean, I think it's really clear to mention that, Buzz Williams is the most experienced guy. Obviously has tournament experience. He's been to an Elite Eight before, something his predecessor did not. And something that Maryland hasn't been able to do since the national championship run back in 2002. So that aspect is definitely, the proven, I think he has 11, 12 or 12, 21 seasons, 11 of his 13 postseason appearances have been in the NCAA tournament. So, he definitely meets some of the criteria that, Maryland fans want. I think the biggest question is kind of what I mentioned for subscribers, just kind of his fit in the Northeast with Maryland. I think, now there's really a lot of questions. Obviously, Maryland, he comes to this job. Maryland does not have a sitting athletic director. And obviously, after all of Kevin Willard's comments, you definitely want to be able to go out and get someone established and kind of be able to make a mark with this type of hire. I think Buzz Williams does kind of do that to an extent. I think, Tony Skinn, I think that was someone that a lot of fans were also hoping for, just kind of with him being a DMV guy, obviously with the DMV roots, him and being a George Mason grad, and him kind of being able to possibly help retain some of these players, help, recruiting, through the portal and obviously through the high school route as well. Luke Murray, obviously, I think there was a full-on Twitter campaign for Maryland fans for him to get a look. Obviously, the son of Bill Murray, the UConn assistant there. But again, I think, Buzz Williams does meet some of the criteria. And when you look at, experience kind of mattering in this search, it's very easy to see why Buzz Williams was the ultimate choice.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And you talked a little bit about his experience as a coach, and I think that's my favorite thing about him. It's he's been through college basketball. He's been through multiple spots, whether that's Texas A&M the last couple of years for a while, Virginia Tech before that, Marquette before that. He's been through a lot of jobs, some different conferences. And I think that's a really big part and a really good thing about this hiring is we get someone with experience that has gone through a lot of different programs, that has been in different places, that has seen a lot of different types of players and a lot of different types of styles. And I think that's really beneficial for Maryland. I'm kind of glad we went with Buzz instead of somebody that was less experienced, that maybe a lot of people think can potentially become a really good coach. But we got somebody that's been somewhat established in college basketball. And I think that's what kind of excites me the most, is I didn't want somebody less experienced, but a lot of people think it's kind of the new stuff. But I think that's something that is really cool about this hiring. We get someone that's been a lot of places, that's experienced in college basketball, and has done a lot of different things.
Yeah, I think the only argument for why Maryland in this situation, given the criteria of where Maryland sits, why you could kind of go with a bowl type of hire. You know, you don't have obviously a sitting AD, so there's no long-term strategy. And I mentioned it for subscribers, but wouldn't be shocked if you continue to see the athletic department turn over to the point where when that next athletic director is officially named, it's going to kind of be a new era of college athletics. And at that point, if you're up and comer, if he's doing well, if he's showing signs, that's a guy that you can really get behind, that you can really show that your program has a lot of long-term success and long-term potential. And if it's not going well, you kind of have everything in place to say, okay, we're going to go in a different direction. This is Maryland basketball. We're going to go the experienced, established route. And then, the rev sharing is taken care of at that point. The athletic department, not just the athletic director, but the department is kind of in a better spot where there's, just better communication, better relationships, and people, are able to kind of work together a little bit better. So I think that's kind of why I could see why Maryland, the Luke Murray route, he's a guy that has plenty of experience. Obviously he's done well recruiting in the DMV over the years as well. But a guy like him, you kind of, a lot of people view him as, maybe in that tier of, the potential high major coaches as well. So again, that's kind of why I see Maryland going that route. But again, I also get it from the perspective of, look, Maryland for 2.5 weeks just really took a beating. You don't want to follow it up by saying, oh, well, we just got, on a national stage, just got embarrassed by saying we don't have the resources, we don't have the athletic department in place, we don't have the people in place, so we're just going to hire the first guy that says yes. So I think that establishing or getting a guy that's established kind of sends a message from the athletic department that this is still Maryland basketball and we can still attract top talent.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that.
And then I was actually sorry. Go
ahead. Go ahead.
But I will say, one thing to factor in is just really the state of the carousel. Look, at the end of the day, Kevin Willer made this move post Sweet 16, and I think every Maryland fan at this point, we understand it's not what he did, it's how he did it to get to Villanova. But end of the day, the carousel, the list of candidates weren't that big. Now, that being said, Texas A&M reportedly has Chris Beard on their short list. That wasn't really a name that ever came up with Maryland, and I think a lot of fans will, that again, that hasn't come up in the fan base much either. But I think a lot of people would say, that could be a guy that could have some success here. Obviously, despite his background and his history as well. But again, just kind of the state of the carousel, I think when you kind of factor that in as well. Again, it's easy to see why a lot of people look at the Buzz Williams hire as a good hire.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Chris Beard thing was interesting. I think that was a guy that I was hoping Maryland kind of went after a little bit, but didn't hear too much about that. But I also want to talk about kind of what he's done in the tournament a little bit. I think that's a big part of this. Obviously, college basketball is really based off of March Madness. I feel like for a lot of fans, it's your success is based off the tournament and what you do there. And he's done a pretty good job of getting there. And like you said, he has gone to an Elite Eight before, but he's been in the NCAA tournament the last 3 years with Texas A&M. He hasn't gone past the round of 32, but he has been there the last 3 years with Texas A&M, which I think is really kind of big for Maryland fans. I think at the end of the day, we want to see our team in the tournament. I think that's the goal every single year. I think him and having tournament experience and him being there and done that with Virginia Tech going to the tournament as well 3 times. And then Marquette went to the tournament many times and made that Elite Eight. I think that's part of this hiring that is really big, because a lot of the fans, we're going to look towards March to look at how successful the Terps season was.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the only counter argument that I have is, the tournament, I don't think is the expectation. I think it's kind of the bare minimum. I think, for Maryland, I mean, if you look at, I think that was kind of one of the bigger criticisms during the tail end of the Trojan years, was that, you kind of get to February, mid-January, and by definitely early March, you kind of see the team plateau a little bit, go into, maybe limping towards or into the conference tournament, into the NCAA tournament. And there was never really a threat that Maryland could make a run. Obviously, like you said, and I mentioned it as well. He's made an Elite Eight, pair of Sweet 16 appearances, or excuse me, 3 Sweet 16 appearances. But he's only made it to the second weekend twice, or excuse me, once in 10 years. And that was his last year at Virginia Tech. So I do think that the postseason run and the potential, tournament potential, I think that looms large. I think Maryland fans, I don't see. I mean, if Buzz Williams, for a 6-year contract, if he gets to the tournament 5 times and he makes to the round of 32 4 times, I think a lot of fans would say, that's good, but it's forgettable. That's not the height that Maryland wants to get to. And technically, I guess technically Maryland isn't, but technically Maryland is the last Big Ten team to win a national championship. But again, I think kind of for Maryland, when you look at this year, obviously, and again, you got to factor in his predecessor, Kevin Willard, obviously, never made it out of the first weekend of the NCAA tournament until Derek Queen's buzzer beater. So obviously things can change. A lot of this depends on roster, especially in the modern age of college basketball. But I think Maryland, I think they want that potential. So we'll see. I think Buzz has his work cut out for him. Obviously, year one, if it's a potential rebuild, we'll see about that. But I definitely think that getting the hope, the optimism, I think that's kind of what made this past season so fun. And I don't know that fans will be happy with a team that that their ceiling is Sweet 16 at best.
Yeah, I totally agree. We'll continue our conversations about Coach Williams next after this. Get the supplies you need from the site made from the skilled trades at Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. So I want to continue talking about Coach Williams overall and kind of the state of the Maryland program. I'm kind of curious where you're at in terms of this roster and kind of what Coach Williams has to kind of rebuild. What are your kind of thoughts overall on that? And then I want to kind of go on to that and talk about kind of year one and kind of what we will should expect right away.
Yeah, I mean, at this point right now, I think Malachi Palmer and Chance Stevens are the only two who have not departed. Julian Reese, Jordan Geronimo, both of them have exhausted their eligibility. Jay Young will continue his college career in his 7th year elsewhere. Deshaun Harris-Smith, Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice, Tafari Kapari, Deshaun Harris-Smith, Braden Pierce. All these guys have. Jahari Long entered as well today or Tuesday evening into the transfer portal. So it's going to be and with rosters expanding to 15 next year. It's it's a complete rebuild. Obviously, for Coach Williams, obviously the number one priority is being able to see which guys you're able to retain, and
Right.
I think all eyes kind of point to Rodney Rice on that one. But no doubt, I mean he's this is a complete rebuild, and again,
Yep.
the reason why this hire had to be made so quickly was because the fact that the transfer portal had already been swirling for a week. So at this point, I think we should start to kind of see in the next couple of days, maybe as soon as Wednesday, to see some guys, start to maybe decide, whether they're gonna really stay in the portal, whether they, kind of want to just gauge market value and maybe then return, or they just want to outright withdraw and come back to Maryland. So we'll see. I think there's a lot that's still kind of up in the air, but Coach Williams is expected to, I'm told, meet with the players on Monday, or excuse me, Wednesday morning. So again, we'll should start to see some of that start to move.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think what's tough for me is that obviously you mentioned like basically everybody's in the portal or exhausted their eligibility. Basically, everyone on the Maryland roster, besides those two players you mentioned. I think it's tough for me and Maryland fans is that it felt like we were starting to really head into the right direction under Kevin Willard. And obviously, we hate how he went out and kind of how he went about things. I think that's what's tough about the situation for Maryland fans is we felt like we were in a really good spot, just had our best year in a while. A lot of momentum under the program, being a 4 seed in the tournament, having a star like Derek Queen. I think a lot of Terps fans got really excited. And I'm just hoping Coach Williams can rebuild it as fast as possible, which I think everybody is hoping, but we know it's not going to be easy. And I do think priority number one is definitely trying to keep Rodney Rice. Rodney Rice is definitely a guy that I think we want to keep. And it sounds like he's open to it. It sounds like he's flexible with it and that he might have a chance of staying. So I think that's definitely something that we want to be able to do.
Yeah, like you mentioned it right there. I mean, Rodney Rice kind of being the number one guy. I posted an article over on Inside the Black and Gold early Tuesday morning in the early hours. But with his dad, he's kind of saying, well, we're not going to make any moves until Maryland makes their next head coach hire. We're going to hear them out. There's a strong chance we return, considering the right hire. We'll kind of see how that goes right now. But yeah, like you mentioned, obviously. Priority number one is just kind of being able to lock down this roster. And I think a lot of these guys, I think Jacoby Gillespie, I think there would have been a chance that he still had gone into the portal. There would have been a chance that, if Willard had stayed that, yeah, he would have been able to, team back up, him and Rodney Rice. That would have really been a dynamic backcourt. And at the end of the day, if Jacoby Gillespie, if he ended up transferring out and he went back home to Tennessee, you can't get too mad for Maryland fans when 75% of whether portal or high school, your big message is stay home, represent home. So you can't get mad at another kid for doing the same. But again, I think, like you said, there was just kind of that feeling of, a lot of these guys, Tafara, I wouldn't have expected him to transfer. Braden Pierce, I don't think he would have transferred. Deshaun Harris-Smith, I think that was kind of the writing was on the wall for a while on that one. But it wouldn't have been a total rebuild. Again, I think, like you said, getting Rodney Rice solidified and really making him, the Julian Reese of this rebuild, just kind of the face of the transition of, by the time he graduates, it'll be his second, third year in the program. And, he really has a chance to leave it better than he found it. Although, I guess one of your first years ends up being the crab five. I guess it's not a bad start, but nonetheless, I think that's really the consensus, being able to get him locked in. The question now is going to be how receptive he is. I do expect them to have that line of communication open and at least listen out. But will Maryland be able to? It will remain to be seen. I mean, Bryce has not been has had no shortage of interest in the early hours that he entered the transfer portal.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. We'll continue to chat about this in our last segment and wrap some of the things up after this quick message. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery, and now I budget smarter and save more. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at Monarch Money for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code Locked On College for half off your first year. So I want to continue to talk about overall, and I think something that we haven't addressed is Maryland's lone recruit with the Jeffrey kid. Do you kind of have any idea of what can happen with that, or any inkling or anything about that is a possibility that he could maybe come back? I know he decommitted from the Terps, but is that something that we could see potentially him coming back around with this new hiring?
Yeah, it sounds like, it's kind of a wait and see mode right now. Don't expect any imminent decision. I do know it sounds like Villanova has kind of, made themselves available, obviously with Kevin Willard there, and that's solidified.
Mhm.
So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. Too soon to say if it ends up being, kind of a Maryland Villanova battle, or whatnot, but I won't rule it out. And I think we mentioned earlier, but just kind of also Buzz Williams, that 25 signed class down in
Yeah.
down for the Aggies. So we'll see what happens with that. They have a top 100 point guard as well. So we'll kind of see if he decides to remain locked in with his pledge with the recruit with the Aggies. But it sounds like Maryland will at least have a chance to have the ears of Chris Jeffries. But I think right now it'll be mainly portal, and then potentially other 2025 guys that decommit following coaching changes elsewhere.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's part of what excites me about this process is we're really going to see early on where Coach Williams' kind of flavor is, what kind of players he likes, what kind of style he likes, because he's going to get a huge chance to bring in a lot of different guys from the portal. So we're going to see pretty soon how he kind of goes about things, what kind of players he likes, what kind of play style he exactly likes. Like, I don't know a ton about Texas A&M basketball. I haven't watched them a ton. So I'll be interested to see kind of how he goes about the portal. And I think that's something that's really going to be big because he's going to really have a chance to shape this thing how he really wants early on. Sure, he's not going to be able to get everybody he probably wants. But I'm assuming he's going to be able to get a couple guys that he wants in the portal, having this Maryland job. So I think that's one of the things that excites me is he's going to get pretty early on to really put in his taste to this program.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt he'll definitely be able to. I mean, that's because that's the upside. He'll be able to really mold his roster the way he wants. But again, the way he wants, I kind of put with an asterisk. Just never know how the portal ultimately goes. And I mean, it's an entire roster that you got to rebuild. So I'd say also, I mean, we'll see. Obviously, no one from Texas A&M has entered the transfer portal, but Maryland has front court minutes, and that big man Payne has got 1 year left. So that would be. That'd be one nice one, but again, has not entered the transfer portal yet. And I think if that does materialize, I think that'll be something to track. But again, Buzz Williams, his identity, you're going to get the defense, the physicality, and again, I think coming off of that, I believe the final count was 42-20, being out rebounded against Florida, which was not too far off from the Michigan Big Ten tournament rebounding disparity. So I think, with a guy like Buzz Williams, I definitely think that you're getting a premium on that end of the floor. But again, I think I'm kind of interested to see just really how this backcourt gels and kind of how it meshes together. Bryce Lindsey, is that a guy that he's able to go reel in from the portal to potentially convince Rodney Rice to come back? I think that that'll kind of be interesting to watch. But no doubt that Buzz Williams has to work it out for him.
Yeah, and then I think the last thing I want to talk about, I think the importance for him, and that's going to be really big for this job when you talk about a Maryland job, is how well he can recruit the DMV. I thought Kevin Willard did a pretty good job in his early years being able to recruit the DMV, obviously with Derek Queen. And then the 2023 class didn't pan out exactly how we wanted it to. But at the time, we kind of thought that was going to be a big-time class for Maryland basketball, and those guys were highly recruited as well. I thought Willard did a pretty good job of getting a lot of different players in DMV, and then also bringing back Rodney Rice from the portal and bringing him to the DMV as well. And I think when I look at Coach Williams, I think that's going to be a huge part of this job, and that might be more of a thing down the line in a couple of years, how well he brings in his first recruiting class. But that's going to be something that really decides a lot of this job, Maryland basketball or football, is how well you're going to recruit the DMV. I'm assuming he's going to really put a lot of effort into that. I mean, I know he's going to put a lot of effort into that, but I think that's a big part of this job that I actually thought Kevin Willard was doing a pretty good job at, and we'll see if Coach Williams can kind of keep up that momentum.
Yeah, I think a big part of Willard really being able to hit the ground running, and Willard did, he did recruit a little bit in the DMV, prior to Seton Hall. Tony Skinn played a really big hand. I mean, I think he led for DeJohn Harris-Smith. He led for John Lamoth. David Cox led for Jamie Kaiser. So I mean, those local recruiting ties definitely matter. And I think again, what Buzz Williams' ultimate staff looks like will be kind of interesting. It doesn't sound like any, David Cox, Greg Manning Jr., Kevin Norris, doesn't sound like any of them are going to stay. But we'll see. There's already a report out there. I think Adam Zagoria posted Cox is expected to join Willard at Villanova. So we'll see if that materializes. But I do think the DMV does matter. I think, for a guy like Buzz Williams, where there was already kind of questions, is he even a fit in the Northeast, let alone the DMV?
Right.
Will Maryland kind of be able to get there? But I also want to say, I mean, Kevin Willard, I think when Kevin Willard wanted someone, it was clear that he was going all out. There were a lot of times there were just some questionable non-pursuits. There's definitely some times where there were local folks who made it easy for Maryland to say, hey, just reach out to this person or connect with this person and to help kind of get your foot in the door. And Willard wouldn't reach out directly, and I know that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. We'll see. There's kind of been some feedback about that with Buzz rubbing some people the wrong way. So we'll kind of see how it all materializes in the end. But nonetheless, a 2.5-day coaching search, I think I think a lot of fans kind of appreciate that. And like we say, now we shift to turn into how, meaning how does it all come together? So it'll be interesting to follow.
Yeah, totally. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys go over to Inside Black and Gold for all your latest Terps news. There's a lot of stuff going on right now with the courts, Coach Buzz Williams and that new hiring. So make sure you guys head over to Inside Black and Gold. And then make sure you guys like and subscribe. Locked on Terps. We're here every day talking to Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.